let me show you a very interesting example of HDR calibration with Nioh 2. And this shows that it is very important to double check with this app, this HDR WCG image viewer. Very important to double check your HDR settings with this app, because it is going to tell you what the game is trying to output, and this is clearly not a good option here. So we set up the peak brightness to 800, which is what this LG C1 can do. Also, if you have a CX, it works the same. And usually I use the standard brightness in 180, 200, but in this case the standard brightness is actually affecting that peak brightness. So you see that with 180 the game is trying to output almost 1300 nits. So that's not gonna work very well. So let me show you actually the correct setting here. So if we use the standard brightness in 110, you actually get exactly here 800 nits. So this is the setting. This is the setting, and this is so interesting because this usually it doesn't happen. Usually when you change the standard brightness, the peak brightness is not changing at all. So that's why you have to double check. Just take a screenshot. Also, let me show you some other examples. If we use, for example, 120 here, the game is trying to output 839, which is still okay. Not ideal, but it's still okay. But this calibration screen here is awesome because it has a sun, so you can definitely see the peak brightness, and it also has a lot of black, so you can also set up the black level of your TV, which is very, very important. So let me open the game here and show you how good it looks. So what we have to do, let me change the settings here because I just opened the game. I just opened the game to make this video, so I don't have the settings correct. Let me show you the settings for the black level. What I use on this game, and this is the black level of my TV. So this game has no problem with black level raise, and it's very easy to set up. So the black level of my TV is 51, and on top of that, if you are using VRR, you also have this option here, which is called fine-tune dark areas. And on my TV, this is on 1 usually, okay? But what this fine-tune dark areas does is it changes the black level in smaller increments. So on this game, it's very, very easy to set up that black level, and the game looks just perfect. It is perfect. So let me show you what I do. I come here to the settings on the game, the HDR settings, and because we have that black screen, what you're going to do is I go to the right, to the top right corner of the screen, and I put my eyes very close to the screen. And what I do is to check the pixels. They need to be off, and it's actually very easy to see when the pixels turn on. Very easy, but you need to be on a dark room just to make sure. So you are in a dark room, get your eyes close to the screen, go here to this screen brightness, and you're going to do this. The default is 50. If I increase this to 51, I still have perfect blacks. If I increase it to 52, boom, I no longer have perfect blacks. And then you always check back. You go from 51 to 52 to check. Pixels are on, pixels are off on 51. And with fine-tune dark areas, you do the same thing. Just open here the game optimizer mode. You go to fine-tune dark areas, and we're gonna do the same thing. This is going to be increasing the black level in smaller increments. So on 0 I have perfect black, 1 I still have perfect black. If I increase this to 2, boom, I no longer have perfect blacks, and it's very easy to see how the pixels they just turn on. So why this is so important, and you might think, man, just one click, that's invisible. It is not, because you can see here this standard brightness in 110. It is actually almost the minimum value. So the minimum value is 100, so 110 is just one above the minimum value. So you need to make sure that you are not crushing blacks. And here on the game, it looks so perfect. So perfect. I can see all the shadow detail. In this game, for example, there are some boss battles where you see everything on black and white, which is awesome. So you can see that grayscale and that shadow detail is just, it shows, and it's so important. It is fantastic. So I don't want to show a lot on the game to not spoil the boss battle that I have here. This guy, I mean, I've been fighting with this guy for a while because I also like to play many Souls games at the same time, and it is difficult to sometimes to be good in all the games at the same time because the controllers are different, especially on Nioh 2. You have some different controllers. But yeah, the game is looking fantastic. I don't want to show you a lot of it, but it is perfect. The shadow detail, the highlights, is just awesome. And yeah, if you haven't seen my HDR videos, go and watch them so you learn how to set up the HDR. But it's very easy. Just go, take a screenshot, open the screenshot with that HDR WCG image viewer, and you're going to check the peak brightness. You want that to be 800 nits, and you are going to use HGIG, which is the best setting. If you can set up the HDR sliders, this is gonna be the best setting, HDIG. And for the colors, we're going to use, as always, auto detect, which is going to auto detect that white color gamut on HDR, color depth 55, and warm 50. That's it. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm gonna keep doing these HDR videos from time to time. I hope with my videos I already explain all the options for HDR, and if you watch those videos, you should be able to set up the HDR yourself. But from time to time, I'm gonna be showing some specific games, and of course every new release, because I want people that are searching for HDR settings on a specific game. My goal is that you learn how to set up the HDR settings, period, for every single game. So you don't have to depend on me or anyone else to set up the HDR settings, because it's actually very easy. You just need to check the black level to make sure the black level is not raised. You need to check the peak brightness. You want that peak brightness to match the peak brightness of your TV. If it's 1000 nits or 900 to 1000 nits, if you have the G2 or if you have the C1, then you know. And you just also need to make sure that the midtones are not increasing that peak brightness. And usually the midtones are 180, so from 1 to 200, sometimes up to 230. You can set it up to preference. If you don't, if it's not increasing the peak brightness, you can just set up the midtones to your preference, but you have to double check just in case. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and I am working on my next video. Actually, that's the video I was planning for today. I'm working on scanline sync, which is basically how can you get variable refresh rate results without having a variable refresh rate display. And the reason why that is useful is when we are using Motion Pro on this LG C1, we cannot use VRR, we cannot use G-Sync. So what I'm trying to figure out is how to prevent tearing without having to use V-Sync, without having to use VRR. And that idea is coming from somebody on the comments. I'm going to remember his name for next time when I do that video, because he was the one who gave me that idea. I was talking about, hey, I wish Motion Pro was together with VRR, and he told me, hey, actually we might be able to get that right now. So I'm checking out Riva Turner statistics server and see how can I get rid of tearing if the frame rate drops below 120 if I'm using 120 BF5, or 100 if I'm using 100, or even 60. I know black frame insertion is not going to work at, if it's not 60, 100, or 120, or 50, well, 50 you see a lot of flickering, it's not gonna work. I know it's not gonna work in terms of, you know, because the PWM, the impulse, is not going to be working, so you're not going to get the motion clarity. But if we can at least eliminate the tearing, we don't have to be so concerned about dropping below the target. So if the game doesn't have dynamic resolution scaling, which is the ideal case scenario, like Spider-Man, we have a dynamic resolution scaling. So if the game doesn't have that option, we can at least prevent tearing. So, you know, tearing, the screen tearing, is when you see those ugly lines on the screen. They are horizontal lines going top to bottom on the screen, especially on the top of the screen. So that's what I'm trying to analyze. I'm probably gonna have that on the next video. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions about HDR. And if you don't know what I was talking about, I will explain that on the next video if I figured out how to do that for the PC. I will make sure I explain that very well.